Schellie Show. Welcome, 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 friends. My name is Schellie Fanfan, and I am your emotional intelligence expert. I have the privilege of being the host of the Ask Schellie Show. As an emotional intelligence expert, I have the privilege of working with corporations, bringing them to their next level through the provision of psychoeducation. As a licensed psychotherapist here in this beautiful sunny state of Florida, I have the privilege of working with individuals, with families, with couples, and helping them to achieve harmony, prosperity, and abundance through the provision of evidence-based therapeutic interventions. And as your host of the Ask Schellie Show, I have the privilege of providing feedback to the challenging questions of our listeners. So for the month of February, we have been focused on relationships, love, sex, and intimacy. And I got a question that was sent a little bit after we had guest expert Janie Lacey on the show, where we were talking about relationship toxicity and relationship trauma. And we are highlighting that question today with our guest expert, Pernell Bush. Before we go there, I need each and every person within the sound of my voice to click that share button. You never know when someone is going to be in need of a powerful message. So click share, share, share. Assure that you engage. Go into the comment section. Let me know who you are and where you are from. You can also go into the comment section and click on that link, and you can actually join the stage live. And you can ask your questions to our guest expert if he's still on. You can ask your questions directly to your emotional intelligence expert. We're going to go ahead and get started. Again, for those of you who are on, hello, Robin Williams. Thank you for joining the Ask Schellie Show. Yes, we have Pernell Bush. He is waiting very comfortably backstage, and I will be introducing him in just a second. Guys, we are talking about the fact that men hurt too. Men hurt too. A lot of the times when we are talking about relationships and relationship trauma, I think our implicit bias causes us to automatically see a female victim, but that is not necessarily the case. So while we're talking about toxic relationships and relationship trauma and celibacy and intimacy and sexual gratification and marriages and so much more, we're going to take a time out and we are going to highlight the fact that our men hurt too. We live in a society where men are not socialized to see their most challenging emotional experiences as traumatic. They just don't. So as a result, relationship trauma in men is grossly underreported. Let me say that again. As a result of the fact that men are not socialized to see their challenging experiences as trauma, it is grossly underreported. The statistics on this matter are unclear. However, current data suggests that 1 in every 3 victims of domestic abuse is male. Now, while we are not necessarily highlighting domestic violence, those numbers speak loudly and contribute significantly to the conversation that we are about to have today. It's so exciting, I can't even speak. So while we are not necessarily talking about only domestic abuse, domestic violence, those numbers speak loudly and it contributes significantly to the conversation we are having today. So let me tell you about our guest. Ladies and gentlemen, we're bringing Pernell Bush to add value to this conversation. And let me tell you a little bit about him. Pernell Bush, LCSW, licensed clinical social worker, is the managing partner and lead psychotherapist at K.E.Y Counseling Solutions, LLC. Pernell strives to unlock clients' freedom through healing. He believes in an active approach to therapy that helps individuals connect with themselves, understand their feelings, and improve their negative, hurtful, and self-destructive behavior. If you don't know, now you know. I know some amazing people within Florida, within this community, outside of the United States. It's even better when you have that person on speed dial. It is a blessing. He is always willing to say yes. He is always willing to pour out. He is always willing to serve his community. He takes what God has given him and brings it and serves it right back to the kingdom. So ladies and gentlemen, Those within the sound of my voice, put your hands together for our guest, Pernell Bush.
You know what? I absolutely love your energy. I needed that today. I was feeling a little drained, but when I felt your energy, it helped me pick up a little. So I appreciate it. I love it.
It's so amazing. If the enemy does one thing and causes us to not see how amazing we are. Right. So when you are on this stage, it is because we understand that you have something valuable to contribute to our community, to the people who listen, to the people who chime in. We actually have 2 people already on that want to ask questions. So we see you. Thank you so much for joining. We're going to try to get through this. We have this messy. When you are important, you can only get people for 15 minutes. All right. But he's going to drop those nuggets. He's going to drop those nuggets and we're going to proceed. So relationship trauma in men being completely underreported. That means that we have men that are going through the PTSD. They're going through the sleep disturbances, going through the stomach pains, going through all of the trauma that most of the time we think only women experience. What do you have to say to that?
You know, and like you said, it's very true that a lot of times with men, we have not been taught about what those feelings and what trauma may actually truly feel like. We think we're supposed to push through these emotions. So when a lot of men have probably experienced some trauma within their relationships, within their own lifestyles, with partners, or even within their family, it's just like, hey, I'm a man, I'm supposed to get over that. You know, so I don't have time to feel these emotions. And oftentimes when I have men come into my office, I break down the difference between pushing through emotions and working through emotions.
Ooh, that's good.
Different things. Because we have been so conditioned, and I say we, because myself as well, we've been so conditioned, like we feel this pain. Oh, well, I'm a man, let's just get over and keep going and just continue to try to push my life forward. But we don't truly work through those emotions to understand why we're hurting, especially after a relationship. You know, a lot of times with men, we are experiencing emotional abuse in relationships, which is like, well, I can't talk to anyone about that. I'm not supposed to feel like that. That's not what a man's supposed to feel like. And that's all I'll come back. Like, we are human beings. You have feelings. You have different physiology things that will take place that you will feel when you go through something that's traumatic. And, you know, so it is very important to me that we increase this dialogue with men of understanding the basic feeling. I often bring out a lot of my men, no matter what their age are, I bring out the feelings chart. Because we're so used to just being, hey, you know what? I've been through this traumatizing thing. I'm upset about it, but I'm okay now moving forward. But have we truly worked through that? So now you think you've been mad, but you may have other things that you may not see, other emotions that you, like with men, a lot of times being sarcastic, being very shut off. These things are rooted from the trauma that you may have been feeling or the trauma that you may experience. Like you said, and also the physiological things that you may feel, such as not wanting to eat, not being able to sleep or oversleeping, feeling worthless, feeling powerless, feeling hopeless. These are all signs of trauma. So we have to really have those conversations. So that's why I say I like to have a conversation. Are we pushing through or working through these emotions? And a lot of times we just push through. You know, like, no, we have to work through these. Let's truly identify what's going on. How did this truly hurt you? And I'm telling you, it's a very vulnerable place for men to come in and say, man, I'm actually hurting, and this is why. It's so vulnerable.
We have 4 people already online for questions. So let me say this. I always say, you tell me if you agree, that one of the most powerful forces of the earth, or among the powerful forces in the earth, that drive the way that we think and drive the way that we behave, is unresolved emotional injury. So I want to bring light to the fact that there are women, single women, who desire to be married, that believe that there's an epidemic going on because they can't find a single man of value and quality that wants to commit. And so I wonder, since trauma causes us to escape and avoid, let me say unresolved trauma, since unresolved trauma causes us to escape and avoid anything associated with that traumatic experience, do we have a bunch of men walking this earth that have unresolved emotional injuries, specifically related to relationship and trauma, that cause them to run from anything that looks like commitment, relationship, long-term connectivity, all of the things that were associated with their trauma?
I have to say yes. Yes. I tell a lot of men that I work with, they like, man, how did you learn to really speak where they speak or start to really identify your emotions? I said, it's only because of my education. When I was going through school, they made us do a lot of unpacking. And maybe I had to look at myself in certain ways to understand I had very low emotional IQ. My emotional intelligence was very low. And through my unpacking and my willingness to stand in the paint and try to realize what was going on internally with me, with all the trauma that I experienced from family, from relationships, and how that was really driving my behaviors.
Wow.
So there are a lot of men that have not done the work. You said something that caught my attention, and somebody, you said high value men, and I often talk about high functioning men.
Woo, that's value, right?
Yeah, that high functioning men, high value and high function are two totally different things. You can have a high value man who has a very low emotional intelligence level, who has not done the work to really start to push themselves forward, who has not truly understand the trauma that they have experienced or the trauma they have caused to others, because you also want to be very aware of that. So that's why you want to make sure that you're talking about the high functioning man. And, oftentimes by me being I'm a very masculine guy from what a lot of my male clients say. I say, when you were playing, a lot of us growing up, especially males, a lot of men growing up, we played sports. And I say it was certain times in the sports that we played, you may not have been the best, but you start to practice. You start to see where you probably can improve at. And that way, when you stepped on the court, stepped on the field, or stepped in your given profession, you were able to be at your best. So that's the same things that we have to do with our emotions, with our emotional intelligence. We have to do with the trauma that we experience. Although it may hurt, when I go to the weight room, it hurts because I'm tearing down my muscles to build them up. So in the same thing that we have to do with the trauma that we experience, with the emotions that we're feeling, with the behaviors that we have identified are unhealthy. So we have to really stand in the paint with that to really start to unpack why am I responding to this way? Is it something that's unresolved? Is this behavior that I am displaying, is it something that I'm doing to numb, to ensure I don't have to feel that? And that's something that I know a lot of men do. Even for myself, I have done that. If it's a feeling I don't want to feel, I'm finding activities that can numb it. Going out, drinking, going on multiple days, so I don't have to sit in that feeling. And I have to tell men, in order for us to grow and become stronger internally, that's something we have to sit in and work through, recognize it. So to answer your original question, yeah, there are a lot of men who probably are afraid of commitment, because think about trauma, trauma, anything with PTSD, and you're talking about how it makes you respond to certain stimuli that reminds you of a certain situation. If you've been in a traumatic relationship, and last thing you know is being committed in this relationship, you don't want to commit again, most likely. Or you may be afraid to open up with your feelings because you think that this individual may do the same thing that your past partner has done. So trauma, it makes us want to try to be in a safe haven and avoid those type of situations that we have been in before. And me being a combat veteran, as a United States Marine, a combat veteran, and my job was infantry, understanding, what PTSD looked like from that. And what? A lot of the everyday relationships and interactions that we have, I see PTSD all around, because all PTSD is traumatic, post-traumatic stress. It's traumatic stressful events that you experience. Wow. So if you have had back-to-back traumatic relationships that have been traumatic to you, or you feel like you were devalued, and I think about it like this, especially when we talk about internal wounds, because we all recognize physical wounds, but internal wounds, such as emotional abuse, being belittled, feeling devalued. You don't want to experience that again. And oftentimes people don't do the healing that actually becoming to improve from that. So they just run away from it. So it's a lot harder for us to identify when we have been internally wounded, and knowing that we have to really do the work to start the healing process. And healing is a process. That's another thing I really elaborate with the couples and the men that I work with. Healing it's a process, it's a journey. That's the biggest thing. So we have to really be okay with this being uncomfortable. I mean, I had a gentleman come into my office and he felt so weird the first few sessions, just opening up. He's like, bro, I never talked about myself this much. In the first 2 or 3 sessions, he just, this is foreign to me. And he's like, I don't see the point of this.
Wow.
And I'm like, so you never been in a space where you are able to be vulnerable enough to speak about yourself, to speak about what you're feeling, in order for people to really, truly get to know you, to understand what we have to do on this ride together to get you to the destination of healing that you want to be at, of functionality that you want to be at.
This is so good. And this needs to be shared all over, because Pernell, hurt people hurt others.
Yes.
This is why we have the responsibility to get healed. And this idea that women are the only ones that get hurt. No, women, we know what we do. We hurt too. Whether you're hurting, you're hurting others because you're hurt, whatever it is, we do hurt too. And this is what this episode is about. It's to highlight the fact that men suffer from relationship trauma as well. They hurt, they go through pain, and this is what today is about. Now, those of you who are in the studio, I am about to bring you up live. I just want to make sure you understand what you're doing. So if you desire to change your display name because you want to protect your name, you can go into the private chat and ask me to do so. If not, we're going to go ahead and bring you up. We have our guests here for just a few more minutes. You can go into the private chat. If I don't see any comments, I will start bringing you up to ask your questions to our guest expert. And we are starting with LH are the initials. I'm going to go ahead and bring you on. You have just been brought on to the Ask Schellie show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You can unmute your line and you can ask your question now.
Hello, is this Ask Schellie?
It is. Hello, welcome to the Ask Schellie show. We have Pernell Bush that's with us. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Awesome. Hi, Pernell. This is your friend Lene Holmes from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. How are you?
I'm good, Lene. How about yourself today?
I'm doing really, really well. I am so happy to be on with you today. And I loved hearing the analogy that you just shared about working out your body.
Yes.
And that as a way to really relate to men in the ways that they need to be in touch with their mind, their body, their spirit, their emotions.
Yes.
So I really love that analogy. And all I just want to say is, hey, and it's good seeing you. And, if you could share a little bit about the work you do with children and how you support children, that would just be great to hear.
Definitely. I can definitely do that as well. I can do it towards the close of the ending. I want to make sure we get any other questions, Schellie, before I can
absolutely.
talk about what I do. But I'll make sure I do that, Lene.
Thank you, Lene. Thank you so much for coming on to the Ask Schellie show. We have Dr. Daryl Smith here. I'm going to go ahead and bring him onto the stage. Hello, Mr. Smith. Dr. Smith, how are you, sir?
I'm well, and you? How's everyone doing?
My alpha friend,
Good.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
And this is Mr. Pernell Bush, our guest expert for today. We're talking about men hurt too. Would you like to contribute to the conversation?
Unfortunately, I just got on a little bit later, so I'm enjoying the conversation so far. I do have some comments probably towards the end, but I want to listen a little bit more before I get some input.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Ask Schellie show. Thank you so much. We will be highlighting our question in just a few moments. I just want to make sure that I have everybody on here. We have Justice for Fathers. Justice for Fathers, you are on the Ask Schellie show. You can go ahead and unmute your line and ask your question.
Pernell, how you doing? We met years ago in Orlando, and I think at that time you asked if we could do things together. So here it is. I am going to bring forward my question. My question has to do with fatherless household. And this bounced back both to mothers and fathers. How can we afford an opportunity for fathers to really have a relationship with their kids after a divorce and or separation? Too often what we see are households where mothers are seen as the only doers, the only parental providers. And I get the fall, the cries, the tears from dads who are wanting to have a relationship, but the way the system is set up to choose one parent over the other, which limits the ability for both parents to parent their kids.
Definitely. No, definitely. To answer that question there, first and foremost, we have to start with trying to establish a healthy co-parenting relationship. When we talk about healthy co-parent relationship, it is something that it almost seems foreign in our country today. I had a Facebook comment not too long ago when two co-parents who are no longer together, who are no longer romantically involved, but they were still they celebrate each other for what they do for their children. So we have to really start to normalize what that looks like. Why it's very important for the child at each stage of development to have both parents, to be a part of the stage of development and understand, hey, you as a father and me as a mother, we bring in two totally different developments for our children. But it's very necessary for them to become probably the healthiest whole human being that they can come and functioning member of society. So I believe the first thing that I would want to do is really reestablish how having a healthy co-parenting relationship is probably one of the most important things that we can do in our country today. After divorce, even while you're in a marriage together, currently I work with couples now who just have two different viewpoints of how to raise the children. And what I realized, a lot of times they just haven't sat down together and really created their own, what I call their own bylaws when it comes to their structural business plan, raising their children together. Because we are human beings, we're coming from separate households. So the way that a spouse, mother and father may raise them was a completely different way from what the other spouse, mother and father raised them. And they both probably have great viewpoints, what they want to pour into their children. I just believe that we have to really sit down and have those tough conversations. And I often do what I call, I often have my parents work backwards. Something I learned when I was going to school for business and things of that nature. Work backwards mean, who do you want your child to be at 25? I always ask that question. At 25 years old, who do you want your child to be? And after I ask that question, how are we building your child up to be there? What are we pouring into them? What values are we adding in? What functionalities of the education, their health, what are we doing to actually make sure that this child who are we raising right now, from right now to 25, how are we ensuring that we are pouring into this child like that? But to answer your questions, to really normalize, it's okay to bring the fathers back into the house as we establish that it's a healthy co-parenting relationship. And then also, I do a lot of reunification therapy as well. So to ensure maybe after divorce, sometimes there are estranged parents. So we want to start to really develop that healthy communication between the father and child, or between the co-parent and child over X amount of sessions, to ensure that they can start to reintegrate into the family. So I can go on about this all day. I want to make sure that I'm hitting your primary questions there.
I think you are, but from doing this, I've been doing this for over a decade now, speaking with both fathers and mothers, both ex-military personnel all over the world. And I think one of the problems that we don't address as a society is how the government influence the behaviors of parents. There's always, and I'll give you an example. In Orlando, Florida, once you get divorced, they actually, depending on where the child is housed, the school system automatically takes the other parent off the educational role. So the parent can't be involved, but the court system says, hey, dad, hey, mom, you could visit your son for lunch or your daughter for lunch, but the school system arbitrarily removed that parent, making it problematic, making it inaccessible to the parent. So we need to change the system.
So that's macro level work. So not only are we talking about micro level work about within the family system, but we're also talking about macro. We're talking about policies that needs to be addressed.
Exactly.
And I'm very I love doing macro work. I tell people I love my micro work, what I do in the office, but I'm very big about the macro as well. If we got to get out and try to talk to the right legislators or talk to the right systems to change policies that would help us better address what's going on in our community and help us establish healthy, functional families, let's address those policies. So it's a combination of the two, from what I'm understanding, that we have to really attack simultaneously.
All right, sounds good. I think we need to work together as a community to
Definitely.
get that macro going, because it actually influences the micro, as you've just established.
No, you're right about it. You're right
All
about
right.
it. So definitely, it was great speaking with you.
Thank
Hey,
you
good
so
seeing
much,
you again.
Justice for Fathers, for tuning into the Ask Schellie Show. I want to say, when it comes to co-parenting, those who know me intimately know that I am in a co-parenting relationship. And let me tell you what is important. And you know what? It may not apply to all, but I will say this, and then I'm going to let our guest expert go. We have some more questions that we're going to be taking for the rest of this time. We have to understand, and I'm careful about saying things as a blanket statement, because I am a professional, and I do understand, though some things may work for you, some things may not. But for me, what worked for me was prioritizing my children's prioritizing my children's wellness over my pain. I'm going to say that again. Prioritizing my children's wellness over my pain. We have to make a decision, because it's not their fault. Whatever has caused a divorce, whatever caused your wife to walk out, whatever caused your husband to walk out, has nothing to do with the children. It's not their fault. Even when there may be some things that involve them, like parenting, behavioral issues, whatever, the bottom line is a decision was made, and we cannot place blame on our children. And so we have to prioritize their wellness over our pain. We have to make sure that we are not using our children as weapons. Stop using your children as weapons. Access to their mother and access to their father is important. Shame on you when you limit that access because of your own personal pain or struggle. And so co-parenting is absolutely, someone said that's an intangible goal. It's not true. It starts with a decision to prioritize the wellness of your children over and above the conflict, prioritizing their wellness over and above being right. So co-parenting is absolutely tangible.
Definitely.
Now we
Shellie,
are.
you
Go ahead.
You got me excited, because when how you said that, but you did the work. Like you said, a lot of times we have to prioritize our children's wellness over our pain. And you sound to me like that. That's why I say it's important that we do the work. We understand what may be triggering us in order so we can have a healthy, functional, personal and professional life. And what I want to reiterate to our men when it comes to us experience relationship trauma, and being okay with understanding that these are natural feelings. We are human beings first before we're men. All human beings have feelings. It's okay to work and have those emotions. It's okay to feel as if you've been powerless. It's okay to understand, hey, that does not make me less of a man. Just show me that it's something I need to work through. I have truly been hurt. And like I said, we're looking for a high functioning man in the society. So when we say high functioning, that's the individuals that have done the work outside and inside. This is what we need, and we have to create the spaces for the men. Yesterday, I had 3 men in my office yesterday for all different things, but each one of them cried. That's because it was a safe space for them, but they didn't feel judged. They didn't feel as if I was gonna look down and like, hey man, you're less of a man because you're crying. They each one cried for their own situation, but it was the first time they had cried in so long, and addressed the pain that they were feeling. And then once they released that, they were able to, at least one of them was able to see in that moment what he was doing from the pain that he was feeling, from the trauma that he experienced. Now, what his highest behavior was also now hurting his family because he didn't truly address it properly. That's what I'm saying. In order for us to ensure that we're having a society of high functioning men, and that we're trying to create a society where we have more well-rounded, healthy functioning family units, we have to do the work. We have to be okay with being uncomfortable. And working through our feelings, especially for us as men, it's uncomfortable. But just like I said earlier, when you play the sport or when you're working out, I despise it sometimes, but I get uncomfortable because I know me tearing down those muscles is going to build me up to be stronger. So we have to do the same thing with our emotions. We have to do the same thing with our emotions. So definitely, I enjoyed this conversation, and I want to make sure Lene is a partner of mine. I partner with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. We do a lot of work across the country when it comes to reunification of families when they may have had a child that's been either kidnapped or exploited through online. So this is great work that we're doing in this community. Matter of fact, right now it's a group of us getting together So a group of us getting together to create programs that we're going to be trying to take across nationwide for, especially for kids that have probably been exploited on social media and things of that nature. So I look forward, and I want to say thank you, Schellie, for having me on. I look forward to continue our work together in the community here in Central Florida, Orlando. And this just has been a great conversation that I believe we have to do again.
We will do it again, and I'm going to make sure that we have you for a full hour next time, because it is, we need to normalize vulnerability in our men.
Yes.
We need to normalize vulnerability, because vulnerability is a primary factor for any healthy relationship. So for those of you who are on, feel free to connect with our guest, Pernell Bush, at www.keycounselingsolutions.com. He is on Facebook at Pernell Bush, and you are on Instagram. And what is that? My
Instagram name is @DJuggernaut_therapist. The Juggernaut _therapist. It's kind of long.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Go to our comment section and let people know where they can find you on social media. Guys, www.keycounselingsolutions.com. Our guest expert, Pernell Bush, thank you so much for contributing to this conversation. Great is your reward. Blessings.
Blessings.
And we have another question. Someone has been waiting so patiently with a question. I'm going to go ahead and bring our next person on. Alton Hicks, are you ready to come on to the Ask Schellie show? Let me know that you're ready to come on to the Ask Schellie show. Hello, welcome. You are on the Ask Schellie show. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. I'm actually driving right now, but I can hear very well. Hear me?
I can hear you just a little bit. Do you have a question for us, or you were just stopping in to say hi?
That's it, though. Just wanted to join and show my support and listen to the message.
Thank you so much, and we appreciate your support, because when your support means that you are supporting this movement where men get to a place where they are comfortable with being vulnerable. Relationship trauma does not only impact women, it impacts men. And we have someone that actually wrote in, and I want to read the question that was sent in by this person. And so I would like all of you who are within the sound of my voice, remember, you are my consultation team. I would like for you to go into the comment section and let me know what it is you think. And the question is, Dear Ask Schellie, I listened in on your show with guest expert Janie Lacey a few weeks ago on toxic relationships. Janie Lacey was on the first Tuesday in February. There was mention of relationship trauma, a concept I had not heard before. Is this something only women experience? I'm a 35-year-old Hispanic male. I have been experiencing a great deal of depression and I guess anxiety for the past 2 years. I was in a horrible relationship and I feel like I have been gutted from the inside out. I cannot sleep, I cannot eat, I feel like I am forever changed. My soon-to-be ex-girlfriend has violated me in ways I could never admit to another human being. I am a man feeling powerless. She has cheated on me, she has lied to me, she has gotten aggressive on me, and tried to have me arrested when I tried to defend myself by holding her down until she calmed down after breaking a plate on my head. I always hear about retreats and counseling and SHIT for women, but nothing for men. Where can we go to get help? Where can we go to get help? So we have a gentleman that wrote in who is in a toxic relationship. He's saying that this woman has cheated on him, has lied on him, has become aggressive toward him to the point where he almost got arrested in trying to calm her down after breaking a plate on his head. I would love, love, love to hear your feedback. For those of you who are on Facebook, if you would go into the comment section, let me know what it is you think. Thank you, Alton Hicks, for joining. I'm going to go ahead and get you backstage. For those of us who are listening, let me know what your thoughts are. What is your feedback for this gentleman who is saying, where is the support for men? Where do we go? Where are the weekend retreats for us? Where do we go for counseling? And most of us know, especially from hearing from Mr. Bush, that the services are there. Counseling is there. There is help for relationship trauma. What is your feedback to this gentleman? I'm going to go ahead and give you guys an opportunity to share your thoughts. I'm going to highlight some comments from you guys. Starting with, thank you so much, Robin. Love the glasses. She says, hey, Pernell Bush, that was our guest. And Tina, you're tuning in from Port Charlotte. Thank you so much for being so faithful. We have Joseph Williams from Tampa. Thank you so much for tuning in. And he agrees with Pernell Bush. Yup, we just swallow it and we go. One of the things that Pernell Bush said so eloquently, pushing through versus going through. Going through is when we actually work it out, where we're actually doing the work, right? We're doing the work. We're working through it. We're healing. We are identifying those thought patterns that got us there in the first place. Yes. And we have Martine that says this talk needs to be initiated with boys in elementary school so they can understand and recognize these emotions and feeling early on. Good talk. Thank you so much for your contribution. I'm going to go ahead and I am going to read the question one more time, and I'm going to provide my feedback, and we are going to move on, changing the world one life at a time together. And the question is, dear Schellie, I listened in on your show with guest expert Janie Lacey a few weeks ago on toxic relationships. There was mention of relationship trauma, a concept I had never heard before. Is this something only women experience? I'm a 35-year-old Hispanic male. I have been experiencing a great deal of depression and I guess anxiety for the past 2 years. Good for you that you recognize it. I was in a horrible relationship and I feel like I have been gutted from the inside out. I cannot sleep. I cannot eat. I feel like I am forever changed. My soon-to-be ex-girlfriend has violated me in ways I could never admit to another human being. I am a man feeling powerless. She has cheated on me. She has lied to me. She has gotten aggressive on me and tried to have me arrested when I tried to defend myself by holding her down until she calmed down after breaking a plate on my head. I always hear about retreats, counseling, and stuff for women, but nothing for men. Where can we go to get help? I want to highlight some symptoms of trauma and relationship trauma. These are overall traumatic symptoms, but it can be very specific to relationship trauma. That is depression, anxiety, this desire to isolate, feeling angry, irritable, significant irritability, disruptions in your sleep, whether it's sleeping too much or sleeping too little, disruptions in your appetite, whether that may be eating too much or eating too little, nightmares, extreme and consistent worry, always worrying about your relationship, physical manifestations from the stress, that's headache, high blood pressure, things of that nature, an inability to concentrate, issues with functioning, right? We function in many different areas of our life, at home, work, school, career, in the community. That you're starting to see that these experiences in your relationship are bleeding into other areas of your life. Defeating thoughts, low self-esteem. These are all symptoms, signs that you have to do something different. We cannot do things the same and expect different to come. You cannot do things the same and expect change to come. You have to be the change that you are looking for. The one thing that I would say is that it's important to have awareness. Awareness is key because change or progress cannot happen outside of a state of awareness. This is why the enemy has so many of us in the dark and in denial about our situations, because without a state of awareness, you cannot change. Let me say this again. Change cannot happen outside of a state of awareness. So it's important to understand that the situation that you are in is unhealthy. You have to understand and have an awareness that you deserve better. Most of us, the things that we want are things that we deserve, and that's why you desire it. So having an awareness that you deserve better is huge. And it's also important that you have an awareness of those thought patterns and those behavioral patterns that kept you there for over 2 years. That's important as well, because we can take you out of the relationship, we can send you to another continent, we can send you to another state, but if your thought pattern and your behavioral pattern remains the same, you're going to continue to attract the same. So if the thinking error is, it will get better, that's a thinking error. And that's a thinking error that keeps many of us stuck in our situation, still at the same job, even though you deserve better, still in the same tax bracket, although you have the potential of getting far more. This idea that it will get better is a thinking error. It won't get better until you choose for it to. So being in a state of awareness that change has to happen, that you deserve better, an awareness for those thought patterns and those behavioral patterns that kept that cycle going is key. It's also important that you have a support system, and that is going to require you being vulnerable to people that you trust. And in that vulnerability, you will let them know what is going on, how you are feeling, your frustration, your experience, because these are going to be the people that you recruit to see you through this process. And so establishing a support system for yourself is key. Part of this support is also collecting supportive evidence. You're going to have evidence, because if there's going to be any backlash after you leave this situation, you're going to have to be able to protect yourself legally. So if you haven't done this already, it's important to start collecting as much evidence as you possibly can. Make sure that you have this amazing support system. And listen, amazing support system is not necessarily in numbers. It's about quality, because I'd rather have 2 or 3 people pray for me than 25. Right? Because I don't need dead weight. I don't need you to tell me what you're going to do. I don't need you to tell me you're going to pray for me. I don't need you to tell me you're going to be there and not be there. I'd rather depend on those 2 or 3 warriors who will have my back. And so understand that it's important to allow yourself to be vulnerable to those who are going to assist you, partner with you, and carry you through this process. The next thing that's important is that you separate yourself from the situation. Healing does not begin until you choose your decision. Let me say that again. Healing does not begin until you choose your decision. What does that mean? What does it mean that the healing process will not begin until you choose your decision? So many times we'll make a decision and then we'll move forward and then go right back to the very toxic thing that we tried to leave. You have to be able to choose your decision and understand that missing a person is not enough reason to go back. You will miss the person. You spent 2+ years with this person, but missing them doesn't mean that you need to go back. What you need to do is choose the decision that you made over comfort. Choose your decision over comfort. Change is difficult. It feels uncomfortable. It feels unsettling, but it is our right to change. It is our right to develop. It's our right to be set free. And so, sir, it's important for you to stay committed to the decision that you made. Choose your decision over being comfortable. Understanding that missing somebody is not the reason or not a reason to go back. Your healing process will begin the moment that you choose your decision without any compromise. That is when the healing process begins. And once it begins, it's important that you give yourself time to achieve successful singlehood. This is not the time to align yourself in another relationship, because when you are broken, or you are, let me not say that, someone correct me. Stop saying the word broken. When you are wounded, then you become a liability in a relationship. We want prospects and not projects. I had a friend, Danielle Rampersad. She was on my live. Like, you probably don't even remember when you said that, Danielle, but we want prospects and not projects. And so when you are wounded and you have not taken the time to heal yourself, you become a liability in a relationship instead of an asset. We hold together with someone else that's whole together. We supplement each other, right? We are supplements to one another, and we become a very powerful whole. And so it's important, sir, that when you finally separate, that you give yourself time to heal. You give yourself time to achieve successful singlehood. Get the counseling that you need to regain strength and clarity into the role that you play. You can never, I'm not saying that you can never be the blame for being victimized, but there are thought processes and behavioral patterns that sometimes exacerbate the issues that we are in. So breaking free from that, right? Whatever thought process caused you to believe that you didn't deserve better, there's healing for that thought process. There's healing for modifying those behavioral patterns. So you have to give yourself the opportunity to heal. After you choose your decision, give yourself the opportunity, the room, the time to truly heal from the inside out, outside in, so that you can reinsert yourself into this world and expect that your next will be greater. Because that is what I love about challenges that we face. Our next is always greater. If you do the work now, your next will always be greater. The word of God says that the latter rain shall be greater than the former. We have the right to expect greater as our next, and to use our challenges, to use those learned lessons to be a powerhouse, to cause it to be purpose, to cause it to be an opportunity to heal others. Our stories and our victories are so powerful. And so I recommend, sir, that you separate, you take the steps that you're clearly in a state of awareness. And you called her your or soon to be ex-girlfriend. So clearly some of the changes and some of the transitions have already happened. Make sure that you are establishing a support system. And if you do not have natural supports, then you can get therapy and get the support, the unconditional, non-judgmental support of a psychotherapist that can help you through this process. Make sure that you are separating yourself so you can start your healing process. Get the counseling and the therapy that you need to rebuild yourself. Give yourself the opportunity to be successfully single, and expect that your next will be greater. There's a very powerful cycle that's in operation in the earth. A very, very powerful cycle. And that is that hurt people hurt others. Hurt people hurt others. It is for this reason that we have the responsibility and we have the duty to get healed. We have the responsibility and the duty to get healed because hurt people hurt others. For those of you who are still logged on, talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Yes, someone here, Justice for Father, says, yes, wow, powerful, choose your decisions. Yes, choose what you decided. A lot of the time we were sober-minded when we made those decisions, and then we allow our emotions and our desire to just stay comfortable to keep us there. Our brains will often reject unfamiliarity. How many times have we said that here, right? Often our brains will reject unfamiliarity. You know what may be unfamiliar for most of us? Writing a $1 million check. So this is what I have committed myself to. I don't want my brain to reject or sabotage God's greatest blessings for my life. And so I need to get healed and break free from whatever mindset that causes me to not be ready for the overflow, right? And so sometimes being single is unfamiliar for many people. Being able to be happy alone is something that's very unfamiliar for people. But the fact that it's unfamiliar and causes great pain doesn't necessarily mean that it's not your portion. It means that because you don't like it, because it makes you uncomfortable, because you hate it, it's exactly what you need to do to get it through the season. I love this statement. There's a 30-minute motivational message on YouTube that I listen to when I jog in the morning. And he says, because I hate running, that's why I do it. He says, because I hate running, that's why I do it. Because a lot of the times, the things that we don't like, hate, despise, that our breakthrough is on the other side of that thing. And so as we collectively bring light and awareness to the fact that men hurt too, we all have the responsibility to get healed. And it's important that when you have knowledge of someone who is in such a situation, that you recommend therapy and counseling. Even when a man goes in there and has no intention of being vulnerable, us as therapists, we are trained to use evidence-based therapeutic interventions to tear down those walls, tear down that resistance, tear down that guardedness, and to get to a place where we can engage in a vulnerable process with one another with a strong therapeutic alliance to bring that person to breakthrough. You don't have to know how that's going to happen. It may seem completely impossible for you, sir, all the men out there within the sound of my voice, whether you're hearing the playback, you may think that I would never allow myself to be vulnerable with another man. Or I would never allow myself to be vulnerable with someone that I do not know. I'm not going to stand and pay someone to give me advice. Let me tell you something. My scholarship, my loans, my student loans, my 6 years of dedicating my life to an education says that I do not get paid to give you advice. You can do that anywhere. You can go anywhere and get advice. We provide treatment, the treatment that individuals need to overcome their injury and walk life in a state of freedom. Vulnerability is safe, and it feels very unsafe to so many. And there are so many men out there that are suffering from relationship trauma that they don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. So as soon as a woman starts talking about, what are we doing? It's been a couple of months. What's going on? The man wants to run the other way. Why? Because trauma causes us to enter into our survival brain. And in our survival brain, anything that is associated to the trauma, we immediately go into escape avoidance, fight or flight mode. Fight or flight mode. And so there are so many men that are walking about the earth with unresolved relationship trauma, not being able to connect in a healthy way with other women because of that. And so it is important that we all use whatever power that we have to remove the stigma, that would cause men to suffer in silence. So for those of you, again, who are within the sound of my voice, make sure that you're clicking share. This is a message that we want all to hear because men hurt too. And if we all have a responsibility to one another, then let us make sure that we're speaking these things. We talked about symptoms earlier, right? So if you know someone and you're close to someone and you're noticing that these are symptoms that they are manifesting, symptoms that they are displaying, you may want to say, hey, I think you need to listen to something. Send them a TED Talks. Let them know what it is you see. Sometimes we got to make sure that we don't start diagnosing people, but just say what you see. You used to do this and you don't do it anymore. I notice that you're always in conflict with your loved one. You don't seem to be happy. This is what I'm noticing, right? Say what you see and offer your support to help to help ignite and activate the healing process for your loved one. I hope and pray that this segment was helpful to each and every one of you who are logged in. Thank you so much for tuning into the Ask Schellie Show. For those of you who want to connect with me, feel free to visit with me at www.askschellie.com. If there's something that resonated with you today and you feel like, you know what, I think I need additional support, you can feel free to connect with us at info@askschellie.com. For individual and group support or marital couple support, you can do so by emailing info@askschellie.com. For those of you who have challenging questions, feel free to send them in a confident way. Confidentiality is key. You can send your questions to info@askschellie.com and we will highlight your question on a future show. For those of you who are in marriages or preparing to be married, I definitely recommend that you go to bit.ly/victorious marriages and get your copy of a book that I was a collaborating author for, and that's Struggling to Keep the Vows book. That's bit.ly/victorious marriages, where you can benefit from the amazing stories of married couples who overcame their desire to bolt through the exit door. Again, for those of you who are on, I do appreciate you tuning into the Ask Schellie Show. We are here every week, every Tuesday at 12 o'clock here on Facebook and YouTube. I appreciate your support. Thank you all for tuning in and engaging. Don't forget to connect with me, www.askschellie.com. And remember, hurt people hurt others. Count yourself, cut yourself out of that cycle, cut yourself out of that pattern, set yourself free by prioritizing your healing process today. God bless you.